It was a quiet afternoon in the nearly empty diner, the hum of the refrigerator and soft clatter of dishes filling the air. A janitor was wiping tables with a rhythm she had repeated 1,000 times, when a soldier with a prosthetic leg approached her, holding his tray with an uncertain hand. He looked at her with a question in his eyes and asked, "Can I share this table?" What she said next would not only change his day, but change both of their lives forever. Emma had been a janitor at the small-town diner for nearly 5 years. She knew every regular by name, every coffee preference memorized, and every shortcut to make her rounds efficient. Yet, despite the routine, life had left her feeling quietly tired. Bills stacked up, her mother's health was declining, and she carried the weight of feeling invisible in a world that often overlooked people like her. That day, she was finishing up wiping the last table near the window when a man in uniform hobbled in. He moved carefully, his prosthetic leg clinking softly against the floor. His uniform was immaculate, but there was a weariness in his eyes that spoke louder than medals ever could. Emma looked up as he approached, tray in hand, and stopped cleaning mid-motion. "Can I share this table?" he asked, his voice hesitant but polite. Emma blinked. It wasn't the question itself, it was the way it carried vulnerability. A man who had survived the battlefield asking for something as simple as a seat in a diner seemed almost unfairly human. She smiled warmly. "Of course," she said, stepping aside. As he sat, Emma couldn't help but notice the subtle tremor in his hands and the way he glanced around the diner, perhaps searching for something familiar, or perhaps trying to hide his discomfort. Curiosity got the better of her. "Rough day?" she asked softly, not expecting him to answer. He hesitated, then nodded. "You could say that. I've been through some things." Over the next several minutes they talked. He shared pieces of his story, a deployment overseas, a mission that went wrong, a lost limb, and a long journey of recovery that left him questioning not just his strength but his purpose. Emma listened without interrupting, offering only gentle nods and occasional words of empathy. For Emma, it was the first time in years that someone had shared such raw honesty with her. She felt a strange mix of sadness and admiration swell inside her. Here was a man who had faced literal life and death, and still had the courage to sit in a small diner and ask for a seat at her table. But just as the conversation grew warmer, a loud commotion erupted outside. 2 men were arguing in the parking lot, threatening each other over something trivial. The soldier's eyes flicked toward the window, a flicker of alertness surfacing. Emma realized he was trained to notice danger, even in small forms, and she felt a surge of respect. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. He nodded. "I've learned to stay calm in chaos. But thank you for noticing." By the time they finished eating, something had shifted. Neither of them knew exactly why, but a bond had formed. It wasn't friendship yet, not entirely, but it was the beginning of something rare: trust, recognition, and the quiet understanding that life could be harsh, but connections like these were worth everything. Days turned into weeks. The soldier, whose name was revealed as Lieutenant Daniel Harper, kept returning to the diner, always asking Emma if he could share a table. Over time, their conversations deepened. They discussed resilience, loss, family, and dreams long buried. Emma began to confide in him about her struggles with her mother's illness, her sense of stagnation, and her fear that her life would remain invisible. Daniel shared moments of humor from his tours, stories of comrades lost, and the difficulty of adjusting to life with a prosthetic. One particularly rainy afternoon, Emma noticed Daniel staring out the window, his expression somber. "You okay?" she asked, refilling his coffee. He shook his head. "I'm just tired. Tired of feeling like I have to prove I'm still useful. Sometimes it's easier to just stay home, pretend the world doesn't notice you, even if you're alive." Emma froze. His words mirrored her own fears in ways she hadn't expected. She set the coffee down and simply said, "Daniel, you are still useful. More than you know." He looked at her, eyes glistening, and for the first time, he allowed himself to be vulnerable in front of her. "And you, Emma, you see people. You notice the small things. That makes a bigger difference than you realize." The diner grew quiet around them, the rain pattering softly against the windows. In that silence, Emma realized she had found someone who understood her unspoken struggles. Daniel realized he had found someone who respected not just his past but his humanity. Then came the moment that would forever define their bond. Daniel, after a pause, said, "You know, no one has ever treated me like this before. With so much kindness, without pity." Emma smiled, gently brushing a stray hair from her face. "Sometimes people need to be seen, Daniel. Truly seen. That's all." For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Not the hollow kind that faded at the first challenge, but a steady flame that grew with each shared story, each small act of kindness. Emma, too, felt renewed. Her life, which had felt ordinary and invisible, now held significance. She had touched someone's heart in a way she hadn't imagined possible. The story ends with both of them walking out of the diner as the sun breaks through the clouds, the world outside washed anew. Daniel took a careful step on his prosthetic, Emma walked beside him, and together they faced life with renewed courage. A simple question, "Can I share this table?" had led to an extraordinary connection, proving that even the smallest acts of humanity can heal wounds that run deep. Life's battles, physical or emotional, leave scars, but genuine connection, empathy, and kindness can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Sometimes, all it takes is the courage to ask for a seat at someone's table, and the courage to say, "Yes."